Hello everyone, welcome to our podcast Meet the Minds Behind Liquidmind AI. I'm your host Bhanumati and today we are kicking off with fascinating topic the future of AI in trade. Trade has been the backbone of global economies for centuries, bringing nations together, fueling growth and occasionally sparkling debates over who has the best coffee beans. Yet, inefficiencies, delays and outdated processes are still very much part of the equation. Could AI be the long awaited solution? Can it truly transform trade and solve some of its biggest challenges? That's exactly what we are here to uncover. But hold on, this episode just gets better because we have a very special guest joining us, Naveen Athresh, CEO and founder of Liquidmind AI. If there's anyone who
Hey, thank you.
If anyone there's who embodies bold ideas, real world impact, and crystal clear vision for the future of AI in trade, it's him. He is an IIFT alumnus with impressive leadership experience at PayU and Flipkart. And now he's on a mission to modernize international trade using cutting edge AI technologies. Naveen sir, welcome to the podcast. It's truly an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for hosting me, Bhanumati, and a pleasure to speak about a topic that I'm super passionate about.
Thank you, sir. Also, before we dive in, I think you will appreciate knowing we have something in common, like defense background. Your father has served and mine is serving in the Air Force.
Oh, wonderful. That's great to hear. And we're service kids, as we call it, kids, and we share a very
Defense,
common
yeah.
ethos with respect to the values and the strong motherland first views that comes as part of our DNA.
Yes, like discipline and determination run in our families.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, let's get started with the podcast. Your journey is very fascinating, sir. From IFT to Flipkart to founding Liquid Mind AI. What inspired you to start this company and what keeps you motivated?
So two questions there. What inspired me is for the longest time during the period of my master's in Indian Institute of Foreign Trade 2 decades ago, 2004 to 2006. Um, Common topics and patterns, whether it is uh, product versus process patents. In India, 2005, there was a landmark reform. For those of you that are, I'm a dinosaur in the industry, but for those of you that are coming in new to this space, that fascinated me a lot. And then similarly, WTO, the focus and the bent of WTO towards developed economies, and India constantly having to fight to get a seat at the table for negotiations and putting our point of view across. Liberation Day, which we took out a press release earlier today on behalf of Liquid Mind, talking about its implications for what it bodes for, the future of Indian and international trade. Why we should be taking a view of what percentage of trade constitutes our overall GDP. All were factors that fascinated me a lot to pursue and someday, hopefully, create companies that solve some of the industry's most hardest problems, really. One of them is this. Believe it or not, even today, with all the digitalization, you will be amazed to know that global trade of physical goods, which is valued at perhaps 25 to 30 trillion dollars, according to the World Trade Organization, remains largely paper-based and process-intensive. There have been steps that many countries have taken, but it's still very siloed. So, and exchange of documents produces close to about 5,000 data field interactions, according to BCG reports. This over-reliance on models of paper requiring physical transmission, maybe upload to some XYZ portal today. That's the best people perhaps try and do with respect to digitalization as they call it. There are myriad actors. So all of these really spurred me to say, can we do this better? And these are very hard problems in the industry. It's an understatement to say that. And there's no good, easy solution to it. So we can do a little bit with its document automation. And believe it or not, for the longest time, I've been having this hypothesis in my mind. You solve well for document flow, which in turn solves well for fund flow for those small, medium. We cater to the medium and the large enterprise segment, but equally relevant for the small and medium enterprise, medium, and the large enterprises, which are far better, frankly, because they have processes, they have the funds to pay for those teams that process the documentation, custom holding agents, and so on. But you get the idea. So that's really what motivated me. If you, there is no one single chingari or trigger, as we call it. There are myriad factors between in the last 2 decades that has gotten us that spurred my interest. And what the second part of your question, Bhanu?
What keeps you motivated?
My passion for technology for the longest time since I was a 10-year-old keeps me the most motivated. There has never been a better time in history. If you look at the intersection of international trade, like I spoke of the Liberation Day earlier, looking at how technology can solve real world problems. I have never been a believer in saying, I know this cool tech, so I'm going to try and do something magical. Instead, my view of the world has always been take real world problems and take a customer first, have empathy for customer needs, unmet, unarticulated, and the latent and pain points, work backwards to solve the job to be done. In the world of trade, like I highlighted the pain points earlier, looking at technologies that I'm perhaps equipped to solve for, which is through artificial intelligence in my last 8 years of journey in AI ML, well before the GPT moment of 2022 November, or perhaps even a little whatever, right? A few less than a week after the Liberation Day, which completely was an earthquake in our world of international trade. Most of my IFT colleagues and classmates were like, "Wow, this is huge," and how it impacts various countries and so on. So that keeps me motivated. I came across two very interesting anecdotal evidences that I was up all night trying to research on to figure how the heck did this happen. The DeepSeek moment, as many of us, I downloaded DeepSeek overnight, played around, like many did, who are tech junkies like me, and I'm a hands-on techie and a coder and a product manager and a entrepreneur at heart. So that led the creative juices flowing. Similarly, figuring how could DeepSeek run it on and bring the cost down of compute, and how could they launch such a wonderful model that rivaled GPT, which was built at far greater resources than basically they were punching above their weight. And then there was a little twist to that story where somebody said there is this whole angle where there were competing models that started launching, Quen from Alibaba and so on, and Llama 4 that came out 2 days ago, yesterday, actually. And that Llama, as you know, is open source. That led me it keeps me awake at night. I spend 18 out of my 24 hours playing around with technology to solve these real world problems. Hopefully, some go on a great way in solving problems for the world of international trade.
Nice, nice motivations. Uh, you have been a two-timer entrepreneur now. How has that shaped your perspective on building and scaling businesses? Any lessons you love to share?
Um, I have been a 2x entrepreneur. My first stint was back in 2001 to 2010, where I was employee one for a product startup, which was just coming out of Southern California, um, unknown quantity called iBackup, which was competing in the space of online backup sync and collaboration. Today, that company, a sister service of that, which I launched, a low-cost version of that called iDrive, which is the company bears its name today. I was actually proud enough to have launched it back in 2006, um, almost 19 years ago. And they deal with many multiple petabytes of data, handling user storage, still are one of the best services rated consistently highly by PC Magazine and many other rating agencies in the US, Europe, and so on. And basically basically learning the ropes, if you will, of building startups, hiring teams. I must have hired and recruited perhaps 1,000 people to get those 200 to 50 people that I got into that team at iDrive. Um, Over those 9 years. I made many mistakes along the way. Hopefully, I made some very successful hiring decisions, which is perhaps testimony to from when I left that company in 2010 to till date. in how it has grown and the trajectory. And many of them have been ex-managers of that company who are still my hires. Something must have gone right there. The products that are commercially successful, 20, $25 million business, doing many multiple $1 million in profits, at least at the time that I was part of it. And I guess perhaps even now, because it continues to be doing well. They're still in business and they're doing well for themselves. Um, that sowed the seeds of my entrepreneurial journey, my thinking. We also had some hits and misses. For you may not know, but we launched a clone of YouTube called Aapka Video in India in 2006, and we had some great 4,000 page views per day, YouTube videos, etc. But content moderation, as you know, in those days, well before the YouTube flywheel kicked in of content creators, influencers, consumers, and whatever the behemoth that YouTube has gone on to become today, thanks to Google's acquisition of it in 2006 for $1.65 billion. We came up with a competing service in India, but we realized very early on that we needed strong content partnerships. We had spoken with many news channels, both private and government, to strike those alliances to get some of the greater content creation created in Apka Video. And we took that service down pretty early in about 1.5 years of post inception due to those strict content regulations and kicking start that content flywheel. But iDrive and iBackup and Remote PC, a sister service of it, happened to continuously do well. Um, that's a great part of my journey. Went on to another American B2B startup post that, then joined myriad Indian product startups along the way in B2B and B2C. I was the head of product for Capillary Technologies back in 2012 December till 2014 October, and then joined Flipkart, worked with the founding team at Flipkart in many of us for Indian e-commerce, creating many services for Flipkart and products for Flipkart along the way. Then uh, did Liquid Mind 1.0 in creating many product startups for, say, fashion, fast fashion, took it to TechCrunch New York back in 2017, did myriad experiments along the way, was part of instituting the entire Rakuten data science, data platform group, data product group. And that's where my first exposure to AI ML and building capabilities from the ground up for very hard problems for Japanese e-commerce and American e-commerce for Rakuten's services called Rakuten Ichiba and Rakuten Ebates were put. Ebates is such a powerful service that, 7% of US holiday traffic goes through that. So great experiences there. And then PayU, like you said, creating the SMB product team, platform team to build products, competing with, Razorpay, BillDesk, Cashfree, and so on, for fintech for Indian commerce. And then, of course, a Singapore company called Matchmo in the issuing side, where we partner with Stripe and some of the other players as well to build many of those capabilities in the Southeast Asian, ASEAN region. And then, of course, now Liquid Mind 2.0, if you will, to create problems and for problems for commerce. So it's been a long and a very interesting journey. No good answer in which is the best, but if you were to ask me to call out just the top two or three, I would say my Flipkart experiences rates as the highest. Perhaps my Liquid Mind experiences have taught me the most, and the application of those have applied to across slew of all the other companies. The one that I enjoyed the most has been Rakuten. Some of the best people that I've worked with, best team members, best counterparts, different geographies, US, Europe, India, of course, and Japan. And I love Japan as a country and the culture that they permeate. And hopefully we get to imbibe a lot of that along with our own wonderful Desi values. So, yeah,
Yeah, Japan is always known for their hosting and their culture.
yeah. And attention to detail. You should see the level of a second delay here and there, and they're going to
Mm,
get pissed. And that's a quality we Indians will do well to learn.
yes, sure. Okay. Trade drives the global economy, but inefficiencies persist. In your opinion, what are the biggest hurdles in today's trade landscape?
Like I said, right, the transformational opportunities for trade are as follows, and I'll be very clear about this, right? Accessibility and interoperability among stakeholders. A digital trade ecosystem should enable interoperability between all trade and related platforms, whether it's used by SMEs, medium enterprises, or large. And digital records could be integrated with other digital systems, custom ports, shipping, logistics management systems, etc. Some countries have domestic laws in place to recognize electronic trade documents, unilateral trade trust, etc. Some of them, to say the least. Documents and legislation may not be compatible and interoperable with those from other jurisdictions. So, which is what digitalization of global trade really needs. And the integration could enable automated processing, data exchange that is seamless, and real-time information sharing. This result will be what is the outcome metric, improved collaboration, improved operational efficiency, etc. Second is economic growth and increased competitiveness. What have we just learned and seen from the whole Trump Liberation Day? All countries in the world were shaken. Singapore PM took out a video that spells out risks, although I have a slightly different point of view because Singapore, it's a very different equation. Their trade to GDP ratio is 3x. India, US, Europe, etc. It's more like 25% of our overall GDP or even lower. India did what? So, we're shooting for the DGFT, the conference I attended in SCOMET back in January. Our goal is laid out by the Director General of Foreign Trade India is $3 trillion of trade of exports by 2030. And we want a net wherever possible, hopefully trade surplus. Everybody tries. Um, Compared to say the multi-trillion opportunity that China has already because they're a manufacturing hub for the rest of the world. It's changing, albeit ever so slightly. These Liberation Day learnings for all of us, let's put it that way, uh, taught us a lot. Economic growth, increased competitiveness, comprehensive and international recognized regulatory framework, removing uncertainty, to validate and enforceability, easier for businesses, maybe medium, large, small, SME, etc., to engage in international trade and access to global markets. Why is US, coming down this Liberation Day thing? Because they believe Make in America has to be made great again. And a large part of the ecosystem today is relying on China as a factory for the world, if you will. Many big global companies and brands and their CEOs swear by that because China can spin at scale large factories. Which other country stands even close competitively to that? So you need a secure legal framework for cross-border paperless trade that will stimulate domestic industries, foster trade relationships, attract foreign investment, boosting global GDP, so on. Right? Some estimates are perhaps faster, more secure, and streamlining trade. Third, that boosts resilience and efficiency in global trade. Traditionally, trade will involve paper documents, processes. Digitalization would reduce time and cost associated with manual handling, courier service, delays caused by lost or misplaced documents. Digital records would be instantly available, securely transmitted, verified, accessed, stored, leading to faster and more secure transactions. It would reduce administrative burden, eliminate errors, discrepancies, manual data entry, right? Digitalizing bill of lading alone can account for perhaps 10 to 30% of trade document cost, and that could save, God knows, multi-billion dollars in direct costs and perhaps enable maybe 30, 40, 50 billion dollars additionally in global trade. Fourth point is transparency of environmental, social, governance practices in supply chain, auditable transaction trail. You want provenance tracking and so on. Transparency in supply chain has been a big pain point for the longest time. Reduce the risk of fraud, money laundering, simplify processes for verifying authenticity and integrity of documents, transparent, auditable transaction trail. It would help in environment, social, and governance commitments as well. So it could help identify and address supply chain issues, potential areas for improvement, so on. Fifth is increased financial inclusivity. India has been on a mission to increase financial, or most of current government, you know, uh, uh, whatever the measures that the government is taking at the central government level have been fostering inclusivity at every step in the process, whether it's the Bharat stack, UPI, if you will, or any measures to increase payments, accept payments, pay issuing cards, making commerce more affordable, if you will, making access direct benefit transfers. How many multi-hundred billion million, sorry, of Indian population that's benefited. Similarly, at a global scale, how can you increase financial inclusivity to transparency, traceability delivered by digitalization that could enhance trust, um, reduce risk for financiers to lend money easily to at favorable terms to those SMEs or medium enterprises, boosting access to financing. Digitalization would enable financing of existing products in both trade and supply chain finance. It could provide a solid framework for deep tier supply chain finance. Access to financing becomes easier, growth opportunities gets enhanced, and so on. Right. So these are some of the top of mind recall. What should we do? I'll probably get to it, but yeah, these are some of the pain areas and the value that it can generate for why we moved and why we are working in this space.
Yes, sir. So you have already well structured explained the pain points of exporters, and yeah, they often struggle with compliances related to audits and documentation. So, can AI help business stay audit ready and simplify these challenges?
See, very much so, right? What is at the end of the day, you have to get down to first principles, and I'm a big fan of first principles thinking, the Musk way, is you got to ask yourself from um, what plagues international trade today. Like I highlighted earlier, what plagues international trade at the grassroots is interoperability, communication, provenance tracking, verifiability, compliance, paper documentation. Even if it is digital, then it's some 100 portals that somebody has to go in and upload or change hands. You have customs hold agents who are the interface between your freight forwarders, your exporters, manufacturers, and traders, and myriad goods across food, pharma, consumer electronics, whatever, engineering goods, maybe other leather arts, handicraft, jewelry, whatever, right? So that's one end. Or maybe traders who deal with multiple such product portfolios. And then, of course, the customs. So customs in India has, for example, the SizeGate portal. Many exporters are perhaps well versed through the CHAs who take care of all the heavy lifting of that paperwork. Lot of documentation, changing hands, provenance, Incoterms, international commercial terms, cost insurance and freight, free on board, FOB, and myriad others. The most common is what I called out, but myriad others. Now there is a sudden shock. I just read an article today morning which says India is trying to expedite exports to US before that kick in date of the Liberation Day deadline looms large, because suddenly the importer will probably exporter will have will get less dollars because the importer has to end up probably coughing up more, or the tariffs are higher for the exporter when the US corresponding counterparty is importing into the US, as an example, across myriad categories. Um, so if you were to look at it, I think AI will play a pivotal role because it will simplify compliances, it will simplify document processing, at workflow management. AI, agentic AI are the best tools out there. Use technology for what it is designed to do. Simplify and make your life easy. AI agents are all about that, and we are a company of AI agents. Liquidmind specializes in building AI agents across the board. So you just feed in certain documents and give the required prompts to act on it, and it will go track provenance, get the required latest regulation, merge match with the exporters, with the certifying authorities, get the required authorization going, get the required provenance validation going, if you will, and submit it to and give it to these CHAs or empower them and make document processing a breeze. That's the utopian goal. How we get there is probably in steps, but you get the idea. So and I'm simplifying a very, very complex problem across 10 or 20 different stakeholders, but you get the idea. Look at the cost reduction, improvement in experience for the exporters, traders, and CHAs, and the myriad freight forwarders and the customs officials. Look at the amount of hoops and bounds that people don't have to go to because we simplify everything and solve that problem for them in a one-stop shop, if you will. and the integrations that we are capable of doing as a technology first company, which many of these players across different, say perhaps the best example they can think of is some reduction in fraud risk improvement of fraud risk management, or document processing and so on. But look at the areas we can play. AI lends itself beautifully to solving some of these international trade's hardest problems, and it's scalable. What you build for India is very much applicable for an export use case. What I've highlighted, equally valid for import use cases. I was speaking to somebody the other day where they gave me problems, from large consignments where some letter of credit was not honored and landed up ended up becoming a legal case. So you have so many variants: exporters, importers. You can work with equally scale the technology tomorrow to solve and work with exporters, importers in, say, ASEAN regions, Singapore and so on, or Dubai, Middle East, UAE and so on. So it's USA, with all the Liberation Day noise and the furor that's been created worldwide. It's a storm. It's some of the best. I truly believe in this. In every adversity, there lies an opportunity. If the world views it as very tumultuous right now, this period between last week to this week in the world of international trade, still wrapping their head around what it means for them, we have already gone a step ahead and said, okay, we think this is an opportunity for Liquidmind and we should capitalize on it.
Yes. Okay, and I'm curious about this trade trust.ai framework. Could you explain what it is and how aims to address inefficiencies in trade? Also, uh,
So trade trust,
yeah, you
hmm,
can go ahead.
yeah, no, please go.
Yeah, and also how scalable this is for global adoption and what barriers you see for its success.
So first of all, let's again get down to first principles and tell you what trade trust is, right? So trade trust at its very core is actually uh, uh, basically it is designed to it's a standard. Think of it like the USB standard. In the world of AI, we have something called Model Context Protocol, which is just coming up. They're like USB is something we are all familiar with, right? So MCP is something that's being modeled on the lines of USB. Trade trust is one such in the world of trade. That's the best way. Or UPI is one standard protocol, which many players like PhonePe, Paytm, etc. in India use as a layer to connect and enable seamless P2P, M2P, P2M payments. So M2M payments, merchant to merchant, peer to consumer to merchant, and merchant to consumer, and so on. So similarly, there is a authority, a statutory body in Singapore government in 2019. It's called Infocom Media Development Authority, IMDA. They basically were the driving force behind some of the digital transformation efforts in Singapore, and they launched this framework and a standard. It standardizes digital trade with enhanced security and legal certainty for international trade ecosystem. So their vision was everyone to confidently trade with anyone anywhere, and they made it open source. So to make the mission was to make international trade secure, efficient, addressing some of the common problems I just highlighted earlier. And they Trade Trust was designed to achieve this by promoting trust, efficiency, inclusivity in digital trade practices. So it's a digital utility. It's like our DPI framework, digital public infrastructure. So Singapore came with something similar. Trade Trust is truly, to its word, open source. So parties can adopt, build freely, benefiting business ecosystems. So I've seen this, right? Tesla open charger network. Why did Musk open source it? Similarly, Trade Trust open source. Digital public infrastructure, go, try and build on top of UPI to do your great, you know, payments ecosystem and improve financial inclusivity in the India example. That's that, right? So that is who they are. So what do? They have a framework for trade digitalization. So TradeTrust.io is designed as an enabler to transform trade digitalization journey, standardizes digital trade with enhanced security, legal certainty for international trade ecosystems. It allows trading partners to create, exchange, verify, digitize documents, transfer ownership for title documents across different platforms seamlessly. And it does that through blockchain and cryptographic technologies, adhering to global standards and legal requirements to enable trusted portability of electronic trade documents across digital platforms. And electronic documents that are issued that way can be interoperable, legal, effective across systems, streamlining, enhance operational efficiency for business governments, whoever is using it. And it's offered as a digital utility, similar to DPI, like I said. So it's open sourced. People can freely adopt and build upon to customize it for their ecosystem. It's like providing people with a free tool and the supporting framework and structure that turns their document into smart electronic documents that are portable across trading partners and enhance security features while meeting international standards and legal requirements. So people can, and the users of Trade Trust can issue and revoke electronic documents. They can verify electronic documents, proof of source provenance, basically, and authenticity, transfer titles as required for transferable documents, and so on. Right. So Prime Minister Modi from India as well last year, it was in fine print in the news media. People don't understand the space, I guess. So in Indian media, they don't cover it as well. Our government is ahead of the curve. So they launched without really getting into partisan activities, but largely, suffice to say, beautiful. You have to give credit where it is. He spoke to them and brought that, and apparently they've run some experiments with Trade Trust in Indian Ministry of Commerce. And Madam Honorable Finance Minister of India, Nirmala Sitharamanji, she announced something very interesting in our budget in February. She announced what they called as Bharat Trade Net, which is basically like UPI for international trade. So it's still to be built and evolved and whatever framework, etc. But hopefully, Liquidmind can play a very active role in that for our exporters, traders, and importers. So, in a nutshell, I gave you a summary of what trade trust is, how India is, and other countries, even some Middle East countries, have adopted. Singapore, of course, has adopted in pockets, in actually greater adoption scale. But it's something that is it is going to take time. More and more, you have to go and call. It's like you know there are two ways in our world of technology, we call it application programming interface, or as we call it, the model context protocol. You can either you have to set a standard first and get others to adopt it, or you go and adopt somebody else's standard. So trade trust is one such where they've set a standard and they're going to take time to get everybody to adopt to it. But once people plug in, it's like USB. It becomes seamless and people communicate seamlessly. It's like language of communication, English. I'm speaking to you in English and you can understand, decipher, and you can communicate back with me in English, and that's a protocol. So much like APIs, protocols, MCP, model context protocol in our world of AI, for those that understand it, it's very high tech. But it's suffice to say, it's like USB standard. Trade trust is exactly like that. Or a Bharat TradeNet envisages to be through a DPI, a digital public infrastructure that will uh, be mirrored on those lines.
Okay, so. And how do you see AI optimizing supply chains and reducing cost in global trade, especially on this custom clearance, which took like kind of bottleneck to all the supply chains?
Um, See, I think again, you have to get down to first principles. It's not so much about AI, but it's about workflow automation, right? So whether it talk of unilateral model law and electronic trade transferable records, it's what they call as model law and MLETR, which was created for paperless trade, or what we are aspiring to do, which looks at that as a baseline and how do we sort of get there, and providing an international framework to align national laws and enables legal use of electronic transferable records for domestic and international usage across borders for traders, exporters, importers, and so on. And if you can do that well, there are three principles underpinning whether it's unilateral on electronic commerce, whether it's what values we aspire to hold ourselves to high standards in Liquidmind, which is non-discrimination of against electronic records. Principle ensures that electronic records is not denied legal effect, validity, enforceability, just on the basis that it is in electronic form. It gives it legal recognition. So we want to ensure that in that AI first world, which we are adopting as a tech that solves a real world huge problem in the world of trade, we look at that technological neutrality. So ensures that the law does not mandate or favor the user. And this is unilaterals too, by the way. We are adhering to it. That's all. So I'm calling out what is essentially unilaterals framework. ensures that the law does not mandate or favor the use of any specific tech method. It enables use of modern tech like ours, thereby making legislation future-proof. And functional equivalence. So the principle lays out criteria as laid out by Eunice et al. For ensuring electronic communication that satisfy for form requirements applicable to paper-based document writing, originality, provenance, signed, all of that, right? So that's the functional equivalence thing. Other key characteristics is obviously, how are you going to push for this, and how are you going to ensure more and more people align to this and get adoption going? But AI really at the grassroots, and like I said, the first principle is all about workflow automation, ensuring it adheres to strong foundations for cross-border trade, which is absolutely table stakes. And how do we play an active role in getting to solve those problems? So that's really how we have to look at it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And like some companies are still hesitant to invest in AI because of some cyber frauds. And recently we heard like even AI can duplicate documents just like Aadhaar card and PAN cards, same to same. So what would you say to skeptical CFO and HCM leader about its impact?
First of all, I don't think so. It's look, any new technology is bound to have its pool of naysayers. When GPT launched, even today, I see that many people. I'm a businessman. I speak to people, customers, partners, everybody day in day out. So I can say that with great degree of certainty, there is a lot of skepticism when it comes to newer technology, and that's part of the Gartner hype curve. You're familiar with it, right? So there is a peak of heightened inflation, expected inflation, and inflated expectations. Then there's a trough of disillusionment, and then it normalizes, and suddenly it again takes off. So we are somewhere in that. I don't think we're in that takeoff stage. The critical the moment, so the that inflection point perhaps came around the time of GPT launch, which suddenly democratized what AI can do. You should see the number of. I will give you. Look, there is this great book called Freakonomics. So in that Freakonomics way of thinking, in my own mind, if I were to look and draw parallels, there is this thing about I look at trends, and my LinkedIn feed is flooded, and maybe I follow them too. It's also about a little bit of the flywheel and the virtuous cycle, but it's flooded with AI posts, capabilities that people are talking of, and how can transform industries. Not so much still use case driven; it's still very tech first. But in my mind, because I'm a very user driven and work backwards to put technology to solve customer problems and user pain points, I come with that view always. Anything that I look at it customer first and work backwards. So I'm obsessed with customers. So I view AI in that stage where first GPT in November 22 and DeepSeek in February 25 have transformed and democratized the usage of AI, the adoption of AI, the impact that AI has had on myriad industries as we have gone along in the short 2.5 years that it's been around. So no longer, and I can tell you with great certainty on the value wherever, whether it's large language models, small language models, whether it's fine tuning, whether it is DeepSeek's way of, whether it is looking at how they did mixture of experts, how did they did build reasoning models, how did they solve for capabilities that look at problems from a very, very different lens and solve for those? I think it's so that's probably how one should look at it. And it is bound to have skepticism along the way. People will be skeptical as with any new technology. But I can tell you this, I always say this to all my mentees and counterparts. It is not AI that will impact them or kill their business or their way of working or their jobs being made redundant, as is the normal rhetoric I hear. It is a lack of knowledge of AI that will. And I'll put it in another way. It is it is it is a far it's profound. It's bigger than what people saw with the advent of the internet. It's bigger than something much smaller, the new form factor, which is smartphones, and the revolution that app stores, etc., created. Um, this is huge. It's like industrial revolution, the steam engine, the automobile and assembly line technique, industrial revolution of a different type with information and communication technology and computers, the way we see it with Microsoft's, Apple's, etc., coming to the fore. This is even more profound. This is it's that big.
Yes, sir.
It will kill industries if people are not careful.
Sure, sir. Where do you envision Liquidmind AI heading in the next 5 years?
It's a very deep question. We like to look at it like any startup does, with early experiments, see how they validate and course correct constantly. We are obviously we have a big vision. We have an overarching vision, like I said, to uh, simplify international trade through intelligent usage of artificial intelligence. That's our mission statement. Simplify workflow management in international trade using AI. Um, and we'll stay true to that ethos. How we simplify is, people don't win build companies. For all those that are the thing, building startups is a 1 day, 2 day, 1 month, 2 month, 1 year, 2 year journey. No, it's multi-decades. To as long as we stay true to that mission and we are successful at what we're trying to do, I'll be happy. And obviously, we have to be profitable. We are a for-profit company, and we, want to work with some of the best logos and solve some of the industry's biggest problems that there exist. Large enterprises are primary forte, perhaps medium at best. And someday, when we are big enough, we'll probably start looking at solving problems for the SMEs, which is a harder space to get into.
Sure. Finally, if there's one thing listeners should take away from this conversation about the future of AI in trade, what it be?
Future is now. Future, I would say, like I was saying earlier as well on one of my statements, I think it's very, very pertinent to say how we envisage and visualize a world of international trade, which is paperless, borderless, and still inculcating all the values of what international trade and intelligent application of technology through that will mean, right? So, what does that mean? The world will be known by a pre-liberation day, um, 2nd April 25, and a post trade liberalization liberation day. It shook the bedrock of international trade, and never before has the rules-based order, free trade agreements, etc., been shaken up more than what it has last week. Markets worldwide have tanked, as you know. And so, my question to people would be very simple: are they prepared as a company where they have looming costs, rising exports, imports, renegotiated Incoterms, international commercial terms, or are they willing to adopt to compliance construct, which is very friendly for them, building end-to-end workflow automation solutions? Um, and are they medium and large enterprises struggling with export, import documentation, workflow automation, and will they be prepared to adopt, solve for companies like us to give us an opportunity to take that customer view, work backwards, and solve it through intelligent adoption of latest AI, artificial intelligence constructs, and building AI agents and agentic AI building and intelligently automating their workflows. And it solves for time motion and end-to-end cycle time reduction through automation, leading to cost reduction. It leads to top line growth and bottom line cost reduction. It also leads to enterprise export import agencies which are involved in the process, leading improvements to lead to increased customer satisfaction. And across the myriad actors that exist in the typical export import flow, CHAs, customs house agents, export import agencies, compliance legal departments, exporter or trader, importer, trade promotion bodies. Um, it's filled with complexity, evolving regulations, sanctions, tariffs, lengthy documents, paper, whatever what people call online is myriad portals that people have to work with, not having access to the latest doc that is released by a foreign trade body for that country or myriad countries, getting surprised at the last minute when it hits customs at export stage or import stage, high stake decision making, lengthy documents, rejections, so on. So a lot of opportunities, and we encourage you to try Liquid Mind. And if you're ready to simplify how you want to deal with international trade, and you're especially flummoxed with what it means for you in a pre and a post-liberation day of the US, come talk to us. We can be reached and sign up for a pilot today. If you're a large and a medium enterprise, we'd love to talk to you. And we can be reached at support@liquidmind.ai, or my personal ID can be reached directly at naveen@liquidmind.ai. Talk to us today. Experience AI and international trade today.
Thank you, sir. Very deep and good question for listeners. Has been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you for sharing your insight and taking us on this journey into the future of trade with AI. To all our listeners, stay tuned in for more episodes where we uncover how AI is reshaping the future of trade, business, and beyond. That's a wrap for today's podcast. Until next time, stay curious, keep innovating, and remember every great idea starts with a mind that dares to dream. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for having me, Bhanu, and the Liquid Mind marketing team. Thank you so much for your time and your questions. Very insightful. Pleasure to be part of this and look forward to the future conversations. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.